Result of the division, subject to correction, ayes 214.
नारी शक्ति वंदन अधिनियम के लिए बहुत बहुत बधाई दूंगा।
After the long wait of 27 years, Indian Parliament has finally passed the historic 120th Constitution Amendment Bill, also informally known as the Women Reservation Bill, with near unanimous in inaugural special session convened in new Parliament in September 2023. Lok Sabha passed the bill with 454 MPs voted in favour and 2 MPs voted against it. In Rajya Sabha, the bill was passed unanimously with 214 MPs voted in favour and none against it. So what is the 120th Amendment Bill? Who and why 2 MPs voted against it? Why does Rajya Sabha have no women reservation? Has reservation in local bodies actually empower women? We will answer all these questions in this video. Reservation is a tool of affirmative action by the state. If a group is not represented proportionally in the political system, its ability to influence policy making is limited. So, to increase the women representation in the legislature, the Parliament has passed the Women Reservation Bill. The bill reserves 33% of seats in Lok Sabha, state legislative assemblies and legislative assemblies of the National Capital Territory of Delhi for women. This will also apply to the seats reserved for SCs and STs in Lok Sabha and state legislatures. The reserved seats will be allocated by rotation to different constituencies to ensure that the reservation benefits women across the country. The reservation will be implemented for 15 years, after which it will be reviewed. To effect the said provision, the 120th Amendment Bill inserts 3 new articles and 1 new clause to the Constitution, namely Article 330A, Article 332A, Article 334A and a new clause in Article 239AA. Despite the unanimous support given to the legislation, the Union government failed to provide a specific timeline for its implementation. The bill states that the provisions relating to the reservation of seats for women shall come into effect after an exercise of delimitation is undertaken. However, there is currently a freeze on delimitation till 2026. In 2002, Article 82 was amended to the effect that it should not be necessary to readjust the allocation seats until the figures of the first census held after 2026 were available. Now, Congress has moved to the Supreme Court seeking implementation of Women's Reservation Bill before 2024 general elections. The bill states that reserved seats shall be allotted by rotation after every delimitation exercise. Rotation of reserved seats may reduce the incentive for MPs to work for their constituencies as they could be ineligible to seek re-election from that constituency. A study by the Ministry of Panchayati Raj recommended that rotation of constituencies should be discontinued at the Panchayat level because almost 85% women were first-timers and only 15% women could get re-elected because the seats they were elected from were de-reserved. Let us have a quick recap about this issue. The issue of political reservation for women in India has a deep-rooted history dating back to the days of the Indian national movement. In 1931, the prominent leaders Begum Shah Nawaz and Sarojini Naidu wrote a letter to the then British Prime Minister advocating for the absolute equality of political status for Indian women. Fast forward to 1971. The National Action Committee on the Status of Women in India highlighted women's dwindling political representation in the country. The National Perspective Plan for Women 1988 recommended reservations for women at all levels of governance from Panchayat to Parliament. Consequently, the 73rd and 74th Amendments to the Constitution were enacted, mandating 1/3 of seats for women in Panchayati Raj institutions with additional reservation for Scheduled Caste SC and Scheduled Tribe ST women in these seats. So what kept the bill pending for 27 years? The Women's Reservation Bill was first introduced in Parliament in 1996 by the H.D. Devagowda-led government. However, several leaders in the United Front government, a coalition of 13 parties, were not in favour of the bill. It was then referred to a joint committee headed by Geeta Mukherjee of the Communist Party of India, CPI. The bill's wording faced scrutiny, prompting suggestions for clarification and refinement. Specifically, the committee felt that the phrase "not less than 1/3" should be replaced with "as nearly as may be 1/3." Other recommendations included reservations of seats in Rajya Sabha, consideration for other backward classes OBCs, and the period of time women should hold the seat under the reservation. There were several attempts in 1997, 1999 and last being 2010, but it failed to see the light. However, the bill faced much opposition as some leaders argued for reservation of OBC Muslim women, adding another layer of complexity to the debate. How the bill has now passed with near unanimous. Over the years, the consensus has arrived among political parties. Many national and state parties have included the Women Reservation Bill in their election manifesto. In March 2023, BRS leader Kavita sat on a 6-hour hunger strike at Jantar Mantar in Delhi to seek the early passage of the pending women reservations bill. And the timing of the introduction of the bill is also important. The bill was introduced in a special session and the opposition was caught unaware of the agenda. It was a catch-22 situation for them. If they opposed it, they would have been accused of being anti-women, and supporting it meant they fell in the trap laid by the ruling government. So, in the end, they chose the latter option in view of the forthcoming state and national elections.
Women's reservation bill.
AIMIM MPs Asaduddin Owaisi and Imtiaz Jalil were the only two out of 456 MPs who voted against the women reservation bill in the Lok Sabha. They demanded the inclusion of OBC reservation in the bill. Owaisi opposed the bill, stating it would only benefit Savarna women and neglect OBC and Muslim women.
This bill will deny fair share to OBCs. This bill will close the doors for the Muslim representation in the parliament and in the assembly, sir.
Seeking communal reservation, they opposed the bill and voted against it. Why does Rajya Sabha have no women reservation? Though Rajya Sabha passed the bill unanimously with 214 MPs voted for it, the current bill doesn't provide women reservation in Rajya Sabha. Presently, Rajya Sabha has only 24 members, which is 14% of the total. The current electoral system of the Rajya Sabha uses the single transferable vote system, which means it is difficult to reserve seats for certain groups. For the same reason, Rajya Sabha doesn't even have SC/ST reservation. So where does India stand in women political participation? India had a history of powerful women in politics, both in the past and the present. The country had a female prime minister as early as 1966, and some of the biggest political parties are headed by women. Female chief ministers have run some of India's largest states, and several women held powerful ministries at federal and state levels. The country has also had two female heads of state, including current President Draupadi Murmu, but at present there are only 82 women in the Lok Sabha, which amounts to 15% of its members, increasing from 5% in the first Lok Sabha. Having 49% of the women population, the share of women parliamentarians has never exceeded the 15% mark in over 70 years of India's electoral history. When considered as a share of total candidates who participated in the 2019 general election, their share is even lower at 9% and has never exceeded that mark. According to Inter-Parliamentary Union IPU data, India is ranked 141 among 185 countries in terms of the percentage of women in the lower house. There are some Asian countries that are doing much better on this count. The Philippines, among the first countries in the world to introduce reservations for women, has crossed the global average with 28%. Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal and South Korea all have reservations for women. After implementation of this bill, there should be at least 181, approximately 33.3% of seats women members in the Lok Sabha. 13 countries in the world constitutes what can be aptly called the 40% group. That is, women constitute 40% or more of the total seats in the national parliament. Topping this group is Rwanda, where women MPs make up for 63.8% of the parliament, outnumbering the men. Bolivia at 53% and Andorra at 50% achieved gender parity with an equal number of men and women MPs. Another interesting aspect to note is that an overwhelming number of the countries that constitute this group are from Africa, followed by Europe and South America. Has women reservation in local bodies work in empowering women? The 73rd and 74th Amendment passed in 1993 reserved 33% of seats for women in panchayats and municipalities. Some states have increased the reservation to 50%. Today, more than 44% seats in local bodies in India are occupied by women. A 2003 study about the effect of reservation for women in panchayats showed that women elected under the reservation policy invest more in the public goods closely linked to women's concern. A London School of Economics paper in 2004 said the election of women at panchayat level led to an increase in the focus on drinking water, road connectivity and school education. The Standing Committee on Personal Public Grievances Law and Justice 2009 had noted that reservation of seats for women in local bodies has enabled them to make meaningful contributions. It also noted that concerns regarding women being proxies to men in local bodies have turned out to be the baseless. The Inter-Parliamentary Union 2022 has noted that legislated quotas have been a decisive factor in women's representation. India has had a universal adult franchise since day zero. It also has among the highest representation rates of women at the local level and has seen women making it to the top ranks of various political hierarchies much before several other countries. It now has the opportunity and potential to set more inspiring precedents. It is high time that political parties did better on this front and help the country realize that potential.